Hey, hello, Lady Jade. How are you today?
Good, how are you?
And can I just say hello first, Mr. Demetrius Washington, thankful to you and your
Yes,
staff, whoever
thank you.
made the decision to bring me forward. And I'm humbled here today because I'm probably the oldest guy in the room. And I can say I'm the dinosaur. And anytime I have young people that want to come out and listen to me, I just take it as an honor. So thank you very much for taking time out of your schedule and coming today. Okay.
So, Mr. Parrish, there were so many other accolades that I didn't read off, and I don't think I've ever asked you this. So I know I'm surprising you today, right? We're switching it up a little bit.
Okay.
But are you proud of yourself? Are you proud of all of your accomplishments that you've encountered thus far, all of the wins?
Okay, first, I did thank you for coming. I thank Mr. Washington. I thank Lady Jade because she began interviewing me, I think, about 2 years ago. And so now I don't give speeches. I like the interviews and the questions because that really brings out, sometimes I say, hey, I really know a lot more than I know that I know. And so I like her questions, and hopefully we have some from the stage. First, I learned don't believe the hype. So in McDonald land, I was working with a marketing committee in Oak Brook, and they brought in ESPN when it was at its heyday around 2000. And one of the things they said was, don't believe the hype. So one, when I hear the accolades, and of course I know the building blocks of why or what I did, but I don't sit back and say I'm proud, but I do feel satisfied. Luke 12:48, to whom much is given, much is required. And I try to give short answers so we could get a lot of questions. But Luke 12:48, to whom much is given, much is required. So I feel this inner satisfaction.
Nice. The reason why I asked that question is as some people in here have already pursued their entrepreneurial journey in producing profit, but some may be just getting started. We always hear this thing like, you don't stop. Don't stop and celebrate the wins. You have to keep going. There's more work to be done. So what does that balance look like? Should they be celebrating their wins and accomplishments? Or should they, okay, that was part of the plan, let's keep it going?
Okay, I wanted to ask this question. So I think this audience, most of you have been in business for 2 years or more. Can you raise your hand if you've been in business 2 years or more? Okay, you should be proud of yourself because the stats are somewhere between half and 2/3 of small businesses fail in the first year. And then in the next 5 years, another half fail. So first you'd be very proud. Now I did want to ask you, it may be too intrusive, how many is that your sole income? Because there's nothing wrong with, hey, I do this on the side. So, hey, my hat's off to you. You should be very, very proud. You should be very proud. I'm going to go back to, on that question on like celebrating your wins. John H. Johnson, you guys are pretty young. Do you remember Ebony Jett? Maybe your grandparents, they kept around for a long time. And so John H. Johnson at one time, he was the richest black man in the world. He replaced A.G. Gaston, and he was replaced by Reginald Lewis. Why should white guys have all the fun? And John H. Johnson talks about, you look at the dollars sort of like as a measure of success. Like I take it, if in Dallas, Emmitt Smith, the next yard didn't mean as much, but it was a measure of success until he became the NFL rushing leader. It was a measure of success. The next 2 points that like a LeBron makes, it's not that important, but it's a celebration of success. And I don't celebrate every success, but every now and then you got to celebrate the success. John H. Johnson talked about, anybody from Chicago? Chicago, okay.
Oh, wow.
So it's called Dr. King Drive now. I remember when it was called South Parkway. And it was in Bronzeville. And so that was like the black Mecca, like Harlem was the black Mecca of New York. And he would just say he could see days he walked up and down South Parkway, and before he got married, with some nice young lady on this, and just enjoyed the breeze and things. So you got to celebrate your wins, but then you got to stay focused. You stay focused. One more point on that. So anybody know about 4 Oak Cliff? 4 Oak Cliff? So the police officer was killed on their parking lot. And so we have a partnership, me and my family and my foundation, with 4 Oak Cliff. So Taylor and Xavier, the 2 principals, we talked to them. They actually called me and they reached out. It was devastating. On their parking lot, this brother got killed. And I said, you know what, guys? you got to stay focused. You got to kind of stop and figure things out. But I said, if I start telling you the things that have happened on my parking lot, you cheered for 25 McDonald's, but I started in Pleasant Grove in 1989. My second was in Pleasant Grove. And usually if I drive up and down the street with you for about 30 minutes, I start remembering things that I wanted to forget about. Drug shootings, that was a hit done at my store. There was a raid where the FBI came in, we thought we were getting robbed. And then when they turned, we saw FBI on the back. All kinds of things, carjacking, robberies. So I said, a lot of things have happened on my parking lots, but you gotta stay focused. And they ended up being treated very well by the Dallas Morning News and the media. But say, hey guys, don't get discouraged. Stay with your goals, do some celebration, but stay focused.
So I love how we kind of polled the room to see who's balancing between, your corporate 9 to 5 and entrepreneurship. Can you share with the room, you were in corporate America when you decided to embark on this McDonald's journey. First, why did you want to shift to entrepreneurial, to become an entrepreneur? And then can you tell them what that work week looked like for you?
Okay, and probably most of you are in or were in corporate America, right? Can you raise your hand if you were or are in corporate America? Yeah. Okay, so I was working for Exxon, and once I got about my 9th or 10th year, I said, you know what, I think I can do better on the outside. I'm a quote, somebody told me my daughter was at a panel a couple weeks ago, and she was in corporate America. She worked for Amazon, and she worked for another company or two. She just said that corporate America kind of chips away at your confidence. Oof. And there used to be a book, or there was a book out years ago, probably it's 40 years old, Black Life in Corporate America. I got to pull that out and kind of thumb through the pages. But I saw that I could do better, and I'd actually started studying for a CPA. Now, I was not an accountant by trade, but with 2 business degrees from Purdue, I knew friends of mine who had passed the CPA and started a practice, and we were living in Houston. So you take a prep course. It was a prep course with Memphis State and LSU, and then that prepared you for the Becker, and then Becker prepared you for the CPA. And I said I could work at night and on the weekends for them. They had their practices, and once I built up clientele, I could quit corporate America. So that was my plan. I happened to get hold of a McDonald's application, filled it out, and it got rejected. Now, this is to me the inner drive. I was 37, 35. I didn't know anyone in McDonald's, but I called them Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 10 o'clock. Ruth Anderson was the name on the letter. I have it framed in my office, my reject letter, to ask her why I was rejected. And when she finally came to the phone, I didn't know I was about to give the best elevator speech in my life. First, I asked her why my education. At that time, I didn't realize every CEO for McDonald's at that time did not have even a bachelor's degree.
Wow.
Second, I said, getting minority programs. She says, no. So then I started talking about service stations. So Exxon, I crunched numbers, but I also had to work the driveway. Anybody from Memphis? So Third and Mallory, I forget the owner's name. I had to work the driveway there. And then I ran a station in Lehigh, Arkansas. If you go out, I guess it's at 20, and past the dog track, Lehigh, Arkansas, no stoplights, 1 stop sign. Then I ran 15 service stations in Jackson, Mississippi. But I started talking about what I learned with that customer interaction. Full service, you greet the customer, you see what kind of grade of gas they want, you try to get them to pop the hood, you clean the windows all the way around the car. You had 6 steps. And so that resonated with her. And what she told me was, and I'm about to wrap it up, you're not in the program, but it took 9 months to get in the program. And then when I got in the program, I had to work 2 years free, not minimum wage, 2 years free. So I worked 50 hours for Exxon, 10 hours was commuting, and 25 hours free to learn their systems and their culture. And after 2 years, we said no to Tulsa, no to Houston, and we came to Dallas. And I'm gonna tell you, Dallas has been one of the best things that ever happened to me. So I got used to, if you add it up, an 85-hour work week, because you probably know about that. You've been in business 2 years, depending on what kind of business you have. So I got used to 85-hour work week. Sometimes you get there at 5 to open at 6, then you might have to close at midnight and leave at 1 a.m. But that blue-collar work ethic. And I'm glad that 35-year-old guy decided to challenge corporate America.
I don't know about free 25 hours a week for 2 years, y'all. I'm gonna be honest. Anybody in here willing to do that? I mean, I don't know, but that is that's some dedication right there, and clearly
Yeah.
is definitely paid off. So I want to talk about. Let's get into lean financial times in business. Anybody in here experience any lean financial times in business? Okay.
Okay.
Have you ever experienced that? And then how do you handle those lean times, Ms. Parrish?
Okay, first I want to tell you, people may not know it, but McDonald's do fail. Owner-operators do fail. But what happens is the company will send in employees who will work for McDonald's the next day and the restaurant never closes. Okay, second point, if you're in business, learn to live beneath your means. Learn to live beneath your means.
That's good.
All right, I try to explain and I've had some difficult times, it's been very successful. We were going into the airport, and so we knew for a year ahead of time we were going to get 2 locations in the airport. This was 96. 95 we were prepping, we opened in 96. And I'm still in the airport, Terminal A. And I had hired enough people to stock 2 restaurants, so I had 2 restaurants on the outside, but I had 50 employees for each restaurant that was going into McDonald's, in the airport. But I had 2 restaurants paying for 4 restaurants of labor because they wanted to make sure we trained everybody right. And so you may not be old enough, but around that time, there was a pilot strike threatened. And Bill Clinton, when the pilot strike happened, he nullified the strike so that the US could continue. He was president. That goes way back. Bill Clinton was president. But what was happening to me, my cash was getting lower because I had 2 restaurants paying for 4, labor for 4 restaurants. And what happened is people started flying a lot less that last 2 months. And so that took a toll just on the airport. So I remember I would handwrite my checks for the bills, and I had my hierarchy. Who I paid on time, paid McDonald's on time, paid the employees on time, paid the food on time. Utilities kind of slow up a little bit. Uniforms slow up a little bit, landscaping. And so I had 2 stacks. Those checks that went out, like the wife, she know how to lay them out. Those checks went out that day, and I had this other stack where I'll come with about 7 to 10 days. So, and I never had taken much out of the business, but that's how I did. I did slow down on vendors to stay. So I'm just saying, Hermes Ertegun, otherwise known as Nipsey Hussle, it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. It's a marathon, it's not a sprint. Hope I get some applause. I just won't quote Martin Luther King. I got some Jay-Z and some Nipsey Hussle. I try to stay relevant, you know what I mean? I try to stay relevant.
What did you listen to in the car on the way here, Mr. Parrish?
The Story of OJ.
Okay.
You know that one?
Yeah.
Jay-Z?
Yeah.
Hey, that's a principle in there. Living rich and dying broke. So you understand the difference between rich and wealthy. You're in business to be wealthy, which is a whole different parameter than rich. Rich is a superficial, clothes, cars, credit cards, things like that. Whereas the wealth, you're trying to build generational wealth. And so that got me. What I got from Nipsey, one of the main things I got from him was understand economic engine. I was talking to a gentleman on the way over, and we talked about the Cowboys, where the owner is a great owner, one of the best businessmen probably in the US. But the general manager, and if you don't know, that's the same guy. That's where it's lacking. That's where it's lacking. So I wore a Lynn Barney. Anybody from Detroit? I wore a Lynn Barney jersey, Detroit Lions jersey. Lynn Barney, brother Kappa, Hall of Famer. I wore Lynn Barney. And when we played in Philadelphia, I'm gonna wear a Michael Vick. So that's my silent protest. Okay.
I love that. So it's funny you even bring up Jerry Jones in his operation. As entrepreneurs, let's talk about operational excellence. What does that look like?
Okay, so from 2 things helped me grow in McDonald's Lane. Operational and financial. So I'm gonna go to operational. Even though I know about taking care of the customer, I always felt I was trying to find key people. And so one of the questions that I received was, you're looking at scaling. So if you're retail, you might have one location, you're looking at 2 to 4. Like, when did you scale? And so to me, one of my integral parts is really those two. How does it look financially, and the people part of it? And so I was always looking for like a key right-hand person. It took me 11 years to find my first real key financial person. Just to let you know the history, they worked for me 12 years, and then I helped them become a franchisee. I gave them a big fat check when they left so that they could get a McDonald's restaurant. They got up to 6 and then they retired. But I was always looking at the organization of people. And so the first employee I hired, who's a Skyline grad and a Texas A&M Commerce, she still works for me. She's out of the store, she runs my office because of my trust of her. She knows the operations, but I can trust her. And financially, you gotta make sure, and if you have an accountant or somebody that crunches numbers for you, can we afford this? Like, if it's retail, okay, is there rent at this next location? Do I have the people, a person to staff it? Because one thing I didn't realize when I went from 1 to 2, it was kind of scary, was I was my own general manager at the first restaurant. So when I got 2, I realized I need to pick a general manager for the current restaurant, for the new restaurant, but also for the current one. Because I need to be the supervisor. Now, the one thing I liked about it was I took my name off the schedule. And so that was great. They had responsibilities, but I still have responsibilities. I'm gonna tell you something I want to learn from Marvin Gaye. Marvin Gaye and Wesley Snipes didn't like to pay taxes. And so as much as he was a beautiful singer, like, the IRS raided his studio in Los Angeles. So pay your taxes on time. And even though I'm a pretty big company, guess who pays all my taxes? I'm the one that physically pays the taxes. 940, 941, if you know about that. Sales taxes on the 20th of the month. Real estate taxes, which is usually February 1st. Franchise taxes, which is May 15th. So my accountant will tell me the number I pay. But the actual person who goes online and pays it, as much as my first employee who's worked for me 35 years, I still pay my taxes. I'm not saying that's the way to go. But if you read about why do businesses fail, a lot of them fail, like, their first, and you guys have passed that, your past 2 years, is they don't pay their taxes on time. The number one tax they don't pay is the employee taxes. So, got a few nuggets in there,
Okay, so I do kind of want to dive a little bit further into the scaling, because you talked about hiring other personnel.
Right.
Now, I think a lot of times, especially as an entrepreneur, one of the most difficult things is allowing somebody else to be a part of your baby. Like, this is your dream, right? Do you guys find that it's hard? What do they say? Good help is hard to find, right? So how do you find personnel that will take care of your vision the way that you do? What does that look like?
Okay, I'm gonna start with 2 quotes that are 100 years apart. So do you guys know who A-Rod is? Used to be the boyfriend of J-Lo, Alex Rodriguez, baseball, right? Okay.
Now, when you start referring to A-Rod, not as a legendary baseball player, but the boyfriend.
Okay.
That's hilarious.
Okay, and then Teddy Roosevelt, the first Roosevelt to become president. So both of them made these quotes, and I'm gonna paraphrase it, and they were 100 years apart. They said, find your people, train and develop your people, and I add in that, make sure they know your culture.
That's good.
And get the hell out of the way and let them run the business, but to me, also reward them. Reward them, all right? Some folks have left me, and some folks, when we end it, they will be millionaires when they leave, okay? We've done hiring inside, and we've brought people from the outside. Most of the time, people from the inside have been more successful. One of the things, you can observe them, their weaknesses, their strength, they know your system, because even though McDonald's is a system, there's a Parrish system of things we try to do. We try to emulate Sewell. I don't know if anybody ever goes into a Sewell auto dealership. And if you go to Sewell, you're getting spoiled. Go into another dealership just to go, and you'll say, oh, wow, man, Sewell has me spoiled. Yep. And so you get to know them, and again, their pluses, their minuses, their work ethic, maybe even their family. And so we've been successful with that. Now, my first right-hand person, and his name was Victor Martinez, we bought 4 restaurants, and he was part of the deal. So I got to observe him for a couple months, and I saw that he was just head and shoulders above my other supervisors. So I talked to him about becoming my director of operations. And so in McDonald land, you have the owner, and if you have enough restaurants, you have a director, and then they supervise the supervisors. These supervisors has 4 to 6 restaurants. So that was a hierarchy, but it took me 11 years to get the person who I felt was my true right-hand person. So it's like you get a gut feel also. So I know that there's sophisticated parameters that you look at, but you begin to get the gut feel. What are their beliefs? What's their work ethic? Say, hey, no, you go home, Mr. Parrish. I got it. Let us show you we got it. And then you have to make that decision. But now it took me 11 years, but I went through 11 people to get to them also. So I would assign people to role, but then when they didn't fit, I had to move on. All right? But that key person and then the financials, make sure you're financially strong. Hopefully you'll have a CPA that can look at it and say, hey, yeah, I think you can do this. But remember, if you're living beneath your means, you should be building up some cash on the side. Because I heard a guy say when I was in business one year, he owned the Dodge dealership on Pleasant Run and 35, Grant Patai. And I remember he said this. He said, when you're out of money, you're out of business. Live beneath your means. Build up that cash. Okay, cash is king, right?
Is there such thing as growing too quickly?
Yeah, we see that a lot in McDonald land. I feel great. We own 25 restaurants, but I grew like one. I got my second restaurant 2 years later, my third restaurant 2 years later. I grew very slowly. I've seen people that the company, when McDonald's was trying to be equal and bring a lot of African Americans in, a person would come in and get 5 or 10 restaurants, and usually within 2 years they were done. Our person would have 2 restaurants, and all of a sudden they get to move somewhere and get 15. And they didn't have the infrastructure, the people. They went in with other people. People might quit on them because they don't know you. And so I always just say, be cautious. I've actually, if I count, I probably turned down 8 or 10 restaurants in my lifetime. For me, it wasn't about growing. My goal was just 3 to 5 restaurants. I felt I could send the kids to school and pay the mortgage with 3 to 5 restaurants. Anything beyond it has been like my wildest dreams. So make sure you do your due diligence to grow. And I want you to grow. I want you to grow.
So let's talk about leadership. Because when you're bringing personnel in, when you're hiring people, they got to kind of buy into your vision. And they also have to kind of treat your vision as if it were their own in a sense. So how do you lead and that influence the people that you're bringing in?
All right. Probably 2 points. One, it might have been 10 years ago, McDonald's, they have these consultants that come out. Mostly they inspect you. And so we're having a session one day where I had general managers come over from different restaurants, from the back of a restaurant. And he asked a question similar about leadership. What do you think of the organization? Things like that. And basically, what do you think of Roland Parrish? And so, in my mind, I'm thinking, I hope somebody says, oh, he's this shrewd businessman. He's this great businessman. First person talks. It says, it's like family. Second person, it's like family. Third person, he's dependable. If he says he's going to do it, he does it. And he's going to take care of us. It's like he's family. So I started realizing the reason people I felt were working hard for me was because they felt like I was family.
Wow.
I would take care of them. I've had employees where, gosh, you hate to have, I had 1 3-year stretch where, and these were low managers, store manager, first, second, assistant, these were like swings, but they had been with me like 10, 15 years. They would have a child to get killed. One on these little scooters, and he was riding through the neighborhood, didn't have that tall flag. And you know what? I bring a check in cash and give them like $3,000 or $4,000 to take care of their child. One lady just started crying and fell on my shoulders. During COVID, I remember we took out hero pay, and I did $1,000 for every year that you worked for me.
Wow.
And my team told me the days they felt I could go out during COVID. It was probably after we had got into about 8 months of COVID, began to figure it out, because we didn't know it first. And we were what? Necessary retail or something, so we had to stay open. But I remember I brought them checks, and it was under the radar. They didn't have to pay tax on it. because it was from my pocket. $1,000. You worked for me 10 years? No, it was $100. I'm sorry, $100 a year. So if you work 10 years, you get $1,000. But they just appreciated that. They appreciated that. So I think family. The other thing was blue collar work ethic. My first 15 years, I kept an apron, a freezer coat, freezer gloves, a tool kit, and blower motors in my car. And I did so many trucks my first 10, 12 years. I knew the truck schedule, whether it was 6 a.m. or 10 a.m. at night. And I remember a new manager saw me show up one day. I just bought this restaurant. She said, "What are you doing here?" I said, "It's your truck day." "And what are you going to do?" I said, "I'm going to help unload the truck." And so I put on my freezer coat, freezer hat, freezer gloves, and help unload the truck. And you get to know the maintenance people. And so you get to know everybody. So I led by example.
I love that because let me tell you, as I've shifted into an entrepreneurial journey, I think the biggest misconception is that you become an entrepreneur so that you work less. I am tired of working, so let me own my own business so I can pick my own business hours. I'm like, that is the biggest lie ever told.
Yeah.
Definitely. Okay, so there's a formula that you shared. It's like a math problem about leadership, that trust times respect equals influence.
Yeah. I got that from a McDonald's class, an early class. And I have a leadership slide. I didn't know I would have brought some slides. But trust times respect equals influence. And that's, if anybody says, what's your leadership principle? So if my employees trust me and my employees respect me, I can influence them to do things when I'm not there. You imagine, I'm the general manager of my first restaurant. I didn't take a vacation for a year. I remember the first time I wasn't in that store for 24 hours, meaning like a whole 24 hours went by and I didn't go to the store. It was probably like 6 months in. I was like there every day. And then finally I saw people that would trust me. But I mean, I could trust them with my restaurant, but it was because they trusted me and influenced me. So I'm gonna tell you, if you have employees, they are looking at you.
Yeah.
When you don't think they're looking at you, they're looking at you. So don't slick. Hey, here's a fun story. So there was a buddy of mine, Ray Hicks. He grew up in New Jersey. I grew up in Gary, Indiana. We trained. We were both in this program, and we were 2 years free. And Ray was a little bit of a hustler, but we're married, one child. So he went first. He got a restaurant in D.C. So he went to Washington, D.C. I went to Pleasant Grove. And I remember he was up to 3 restaurants, and I still had one. And he would call me and rib me, you know, like one of your good buddies, man. "Hey, man, what were your sales for like the first 15 days? I give my 15-day sales. He give me his 15-day sales for 3 stores. "Oh, man, you're behind me, man. But on weekends, his wife would come to the store with a grocery bag and go to the freezer, bacon, eggs, nuggets. I think she slipped some 10 to 1 in there, 4 to 1. No, that's beef patties if you don't know. But guess what? When my wife came in, she went to the counter. And guess what? No promo. She paid. And I'm telling you, once I got more restaurants, if I didn't work, like when I was coming in my freezer coat and stuff, because I eventually got, after that 11 years where I kind of walk in as the owner, if I didn't work, I paid for my food. If I go in any of my 25 restaurants right now, I pay for my food. I may give a GM a card, like if I'm talking to somebody in the lobby, "Hey, this is what we want." I give them my credit card. Because Ray went out of business. No, he had me 3 to 1. Now it's 0 to 25. Because if his family is going to eat free, guess what? When my cousin and my sister come in, they're going to eat free too, right? So it's like a principle. The main thing of all I just said was, remember, your employees, if you have employees, they're watching you. And I even have to watch everything I say. In fact, if I go in, I don't even like to talk to a GM one-on-one. I like for the supervisor to be with me. Because I could say something and they take it, that's the new law. Then they got one restaurant doing something and 24 doing something else. But your employees are watching you. Your employees are watching you, okay? You cast a shadow.
Financial excellence, y'all. No hookups. Okay? What's the point of owning a business if you can't hook it up? Just joking. But you're right. I love those stats. Those are really good stats. 0 to 25 now. All right. So we're going to take some questions in just a second. And then, because I think we have just a little while longer, and so you'll be able to ask pretty much all your questions.
Yeah, I'm saying Brother Benjamin took a lot of time. Where's he? I just met him. He's a great guy.
Mr. Parrish, I want to talk about, with your success, you're extremely intentional about circulating the black dollar.
Okay.
Can we talk about that?
Okay. There's a book called Our Black Year by Maggie Anderson. I don't know if you ever read it, but the most profound statement in that book is in the preface. And she talks about economic leakage. Economic leakage is, and I may have the numbers off a little bit, but directionally they're correct. So in the Anglo community, if you take $100 and spend it retail in the Anglo community, it'll churn in that community something like 17 days. If you go to the Jewish community and you spend $100 in that Jewish community, it will stay in that community for 20 days before it exits. The Asian community is something like 30 days.
Wow.
Like what, Vietnamese, and like you have those sections. So that $100 that goes in that community, 30 days. So in the black community, 6 hours, and it's gone. So when I read that book, I became more intentional about hiring black vendors. And I have a slide that shows like, some of them security, pest control, advertising the black newspapers, other things, public relations, is try to, where I can spend in the black community. The other thing is, I know that my black vendors don't have the capital that my other vendors have. So I make sure I pay them early and as quickly as I can. The work I've let, I can't even think of what's some of these national pest services. I've replaced them with Orkin. Slowly replacing Orkin with a gentleman out of Dallas, he and his wife. Believe it or not, I was at Williams Chicken. Mr. Hiawatha Williams had me like in a session like this, and they were in the back trying to drum up business, gave me their card. So they're replacing Orchid. And you know what? I make sure that check goes out quick because they need it. And you know what? They do a good job. So it's not the quality of the work, but I just know, hey, if you're a black vendor, you probably are undercapitalized. And so I try to do that intentionally. But Maggie Anderson, what she did was she woke up one morning in Chicago, and I think some of you folks might be from Chicago. She was trying to find a black-owned grocery store in Chicago. And it took her a year. But that's what the whole book is about. But to me, the key part is that preface. The preface. 15, 17, 20, 30 hours, days, 6 hours for blacks if you spend it in our community.
Y'all know the rapper Killer Mike? Did y'all see the special he did on Netflix? It was pretty much kind of like that. If you haven't seen it, Mr. Parrish, you got to go watch it.
Okay.
Killer Mike basically was trying for a certain amount of time to shop all black, and it was nearly impossible for him to find black vendors. So if you haven't seen that, make sure you go check that out. Okay, so there's a couple of stories that are my favorite story, and then we're going to take our question next. In business, I've decided to do this question instead of the boot story today. But in business, integrity is very important. And I think sometimes opportunity, scaling can mask itself in, doing things that may not uphold your integrity. So can you share with us, you have a story that you and I call the orange juice story, right? Okay. Where you could have compromised your integrity, but you chose not to.
Okay. I really thought we would hit the boot story. So the OJ story. Anybody go to the McDonald's on Lemon Avenue? You know what it is? Okay, but anyway. Sometimes a corporation can be vindictive. So McDonald's at one time didn't like what a couple, they were franchisees, were doing in the Red Oak area. They had the restaurant on the outside of a Walmart. And so to get back with them, McDonald's was going to open up a restaurant on the inside of Walmart. Remember, this family, they're on the pad outside, drive-through, full service. And the regional manager wanted me to take that restaurant. And it was clearly to send a message to that family. I don't care what color they were, they happened to be Anglo, but I saw them as my friends and my counterparts. So we were having an advertising meeting like about a month later after I turned the restaurant down, at Moroccan Associates, which is real close to that Lemon Avenue. And it's like, call me up, hey, Ro, region manager, no, regional vice president. I want to meet you over at the Lemon Avenue McDonald's before the advertising meeting. So I said, okay, yes, sir, I'll be over. So as I sat there, and I didn't realize what the meeting was for, he said, well, Ro, and he was drinking orange juice. Since you didn't take that Red Oak restaurant, and he took a sip, you're not going to get the restaurant that I'm going to build on I-20 in Hampton. Took another sip. You're also not going to build a restaurant that we're going to build in DeSoto on Hampton. Took a sip. And he named about 2 more restaurants. Every time he took a sip, he named a restaurant that had not been built. They're built now. And I wasn't going to get them. And I don't know how I felt that day, but it's kind of like you said, do I take pride, like when you name all the stuff I did? I know I walked out satisfied because if it took me to take that restaurant in Red Oak and be against that family, to me, it wasn't worth those 4. It just wasn't worth those 4.
Wow.
Now, part 2 of the story was 4 years later, he called me in. This is a pen for Jackie Robinson, 42. And I remember he said, it was 3 of us African Americans went in. We have an organization, National Black McDonald's Owners. And so we came in to talk about an issue, and when it was time to go, he said, Ro, I need you to wait. Okay. You know, in my mind, it's like, he's going to take some more stores. But he told me, he said, you know, Roland, I want to grow. I want to grow with you. 34 years later, he said, I want to make you a big franchisee. So I was counting when I was in the lobby. I think I ended up over like a 6-year period getting 10 restaurants from him. I grew from like 6 stores to 17, so that's 11. So I think in the end, it was about 3 things. It was about people, it was about financial, but I think he saw I had principle. And I never regretted, even if I had those 6, I would have survived. We would have been okay. My family would have been okay. But he grew with me, but I think he ended up with an inner respect because of a principle. Because I never told you what I told him. I said, I see the Sullins family as my friend. I can't take the restaurant. So, but that's the OJ story.
Can we just show this man some love, please? Seriously.
I think the lady back there read it.
Oh, yes. Okay, so we are going to take some questions now. And I'm going to start with her in the back, and then I'll come to you.
Yeah, so my question had to do with paying for your food. Did you give the employees a discount? That's all.
Yeah, and we've had various discounts over the years. If you ask me today what the discount is, you know, something like that, just kind of like, I'll ask my director, hey, what's the program right now? But basically, we've gone for is free food. You usually have to work 4 hours, and you got free food. Then I know we went to a time where you paid half price, so instead of being limited, like, you know, one time the menu was pretty cheap. You could say $5 or $7 and they could really eat well. Then we said, okay, you pay half and you get what you want. You want $12 worth of food, pay $6. But I think right now, it's a free food program because I like the free part of it. And it's probably capped. You work 4 hours, you get X free. If you go 8 and then you work some overtime, you get it free again. Now we do inhibit them making their own food because you know that double cheeseburger turned into a triple cheeseburger, stuff like that.
No,
but no,
seriously.
yeah, we do. It is free food. I like if ever I can be and like on healthcare insurance, I pay more than my part. I pay more than my part. That's why the employees probably say family, because it's like, okay, well, I pay more than my part for health insurance. You're welcome.
That's good.
I think it's, okay, yes, sir.
Pleasure to meet you.
Okay.
First and foremost, and my name is Jeremy Hardiman with Articulate Your Value, and I'm a huge fan of Nipsey too.
Okay.
It actually inspired me to read 3 Magic Words. So.
Is that a book?
Yes.
Okay, because I read the marathon. You said 3 magic words? Okay.
Definitely want to pick up.
Okay.
So my question for you is, before I forget, I actually worked at a McDonald's and a Walmart before too.
Are you did?
Back in the
In Dallas?
No, actually I'm from Mississippi,
Which part?
Grenada.
Grenada? Okay.
Yep.
All right.
And so my question for you is related to having a growth and abundance kind of mindset? Like, have you always had that, or was there a moment where that sort of turned for you, and then you kind of began to attract these different, things in your life in terms of going from 6 restaurants to getting an additional?
That's
10?
good.
You can start with the first one.
Okay. Phrase it again for me, Brother Jeremy.
Just the growth mindset.
Growth
Was that
mindset.
something that you always had? Growth and abundance.
Got it.
Right?
And I see I got clouded because I was 3 words,
3 magic words.
3 magic words.
I wrote it
Help
down
me.
for you.
Okay, that's what got me off. Okay.
ULS Anderson.
Oh, okay. Got it.
Oh, so that's not by Nipsey Hussle.
No.
It's
Okay,
a-
who's the
it's
author
about it?
again?
ULS Anderson.
Okay,
Okay.
you will. Okay, perfect.
Okay. All right. As I said earlier, my goal has always been 3 to 5. I thought I could make a really good living off of 3 to 5 restaurants. When I got the opportunity to grow, I saw it as a challenge. And I never set a number of where I wanted to grow. I remember a young man came to me. I had 25 restaurants when I had my 25th anniversary. I just had my 35th anniversary. I still have 25 restaurants. I looked at expanding to other markets, Nashville, East Texas, even Alaska. And at those times, I started thinking, Roland, do you really want to jump on a plane? Now, the one in Texas would have been out in Tyler, and I had friends who had customized vans made that they could have an office and work. And one, they weren't good financial deals, so make sure you can analyze. So they weren't good financial deals. And I just asked, do I really want to do this travel? And so I said I didn't. I've actually sold restaurants to African Americans to help them grow, which is another reason probably why I'm stuck at 25. There was a young man, he started 2 years behind me. And I had 27 restaurants, he had 3. I started in 89, he started in 91. And so I sold him 3, he doubled his volume. I never missed it. And I sold another young lady 2 because she was in Little Italy, and it was a poor situation, African American in Little Italy, Texas. So I ended up selling 5. And out of the clear blue sky, 9 months later, a guy comes up to me and wants to sell me. So I got right back to 25. I never missed a beat. But this young lady went from 1 to 2, she doubled her volume. This young man went from 3 to 6, he doubled his volume. And so I got more satisfaction out of helping people than growing restaurants. And sort of like tithing, I know Brother Benjamin talked about philanthropy. I think he talked about tithing too. It's kind of like I gave, I didn't expect these to come, and they came. So that doesn't answer the question. If, kind of have your vision. Mine was 3 to 5, I grew beyond that. 25 is not a number I just want to stop at, but I was like, can you handle it? The financials and the people part of it. How much money do you need? And make sure you get these other parameters you're looking at. But if you're going to go, you got to have the people in the financials. You got to have the people in the financials. Okay. Hopefully that helped you, Brother Jeremy. All right. Okay. Sorry, I fumbled on that. I was thinking I was trying to do 2 things at once, and I'm a little older now.
Definitely check it out.
Yeah. Okay. Yes, ma'am. And then we get you. Am I taking your job?
No, this is you go for it. No,
Oh, I don't.
you choose. I don't even like choosing because then it's like I left somebody else. I'm gonna put the pressure on you.
Yeah, no. I'm gonna get my job back. You got it. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Hi, my name is Rhonda. So I'm the owner of Class 101, which is a franchise.
Okay.
So I have a location here, one in Atlanta.
Okay.
I'm thinking about opening up my 3rd one in California, but the issue that I'm having now is work-life balance. So how do you handle that as you were scaling, handling, managing your time, and just having time with your kids, your
Okay.
family, and scaling?
Okay. One of the things, make sure you know the California law, because sometimes it's not friendly to franchising.
Yeah.
Okay, so
I
make sure you
heard
got
about
that.
too. That's
Yeah.
why I've been waiting.
Okay, so family balance. And one of my children is here. So my son was 10 years old when I started that, remember that 85-hour work week? And he would tell you, in his words, something like, Dad, we used to have a good time from age 1 to 10. Then he said, you disappeared. Because a lot of my time was working on Saturday. My daughter was born when we opened the restaurant here, so that's all she knows. And so Dad was gone a lot. So we didn't have a quality relationship, but I felt, no, we didn't have a quantity relationship, but a quality relationship. Like I always say, my children graduated from college with no debt. I always said they didn't have a car note, but my son told me he did have a car note one time, maybe twice. As they've gotten older, I don't know if forgiveness is the word, but I think we're working on a pretty good relationship now. But I probably didn't do the greatest job of home life balance. But again, I think my children came out pretty good. And if forgiveness is the word, I think they did that. Now, there's some things that they saw. They've been to Olympic Games. We've been to a couple different countries. Like, I don't travel a lot overseas. So, but there were some sacrifices. There were some sacrifices, okay? And if I could give a shout out, so, because ratings is everything. So my son is sitting back there. He just started with Channel 11. Now, he's been around the block. He's been with ESPN. So, Ro, could you stand up? So he's on in the morning. He does sports, armchair quarterback. If you could tune in, 6 a.m. in the morning, and we hope to have him do some more. Were you going to say something?
I was listening to what you were saying.
Okay.
I didn't hear what you said. You said, say it one more time.
Which part? If my children forgave me? The question was about quality of life.
Right.
And I said that when you were 10, you said I disappeared because I started training.
Which is accurate.
Yeah. And I don't know if you ever forgave me for McDonald's because, you said what?
I did.
How old were you when you forgave me?
Let's just say later on in life.
Yeah.
I became more mature.
Yeah, okay. So now there were some sacrifices, but I do think now that they're reaping some benefits and enjoyed it. And when I say balance, it probably been maybe 20% more I should have, 20% more. But the things you learn, like in McDonald Land, like if you get your kids in the car and your family and you're going on a little trip, you don't stop by your restaurant. Hey, if they say, Dad, we're hungry, you go to somebody else's restaurant to drive through. Because you'll see something wrong, and then 5 hours later, you'll come out, they're in the car like, what took you so long? So like, this thing's wrong. Like, if I'm talking to somebody on the phone and then they say I'm making an order, they say, you checking on their McDonald's? No, I'm at somebody else's McDonald's because I want to grab my food and go. So it's things you learn.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, so I'm Carletta Espert. My cousin actually owns McDonald's in Georgia.
Okay.
Johnny Hurt.
I know Johnny Hurt.
Yeah, I figured.
Right.
Yeah.
He used to be an accountant, right? Was he the accountant with the company?
I'm not sure.
Not sure?
I'm
Okay.
in the hotel management now, so
Okay.
he's our rich uncle. But my question is about family. I'm kind of picking on her. I noticed Wealth is your foundation. Your children work with you. So how is that transition from the work-life balance and having them work with you to create a legacy for your family?
Okay. As I say, I was joking, so my children are allergic to McDonald's, working at McDonald's. And I learned this there was a white guy I worked with, and hate to paraphrase everything. We started at Exxon together, and when I found out his dad owned his own business, I was like, why are you here? Why aren't you working for your dad? I mean, you're sitting here in corporate America with me, why aren't you working for your dad? Ray Marcinowski out of New York. And he said how hard he saw his dad work. I remember my father was going to buy a service station between the house and high school. And I know every day after track practice, I was going to stop in, not to get paid, but sweep the restrooms or wait on some cars or something, pump gas, because it would have been like, that's my dad's service station. It was going to be on the side because he worked in the steel mill. If anybody from Gary, he worked in the steel mill, and that was going to be on the side. You said Gary right there? Okay.
Oh, my father's people
From Gary?
Hyatt's.
Yeah, most of the time you worked at the steel mill. And so I would have done that, but my children, they saw how hard I worked. A 10-hour day was a light day, 12 to 16 hours long day. So it's very enjoyable now. That's what I said, the benefits of having a schedule in the family meeting. And I do tell them now, like with the charity, it's a little dictatorial, but I know that, once I pass the torch, it'll be managed more like it should be managed. I think it's managed well. It's just that one vote counts more than the other 5. And I'm the treasurer too. That's another thing. So I'm a chief executive officer. I have an accounting firm I use, black CPA. There's a book, I don't know if it's in the accountants in it, it's called The White Collar Profession. I don't know if you guys realize, there's fewer black CPAs than there are doctors, lawyers, anything. I respect that so much.
Wow.
So I have my CPA, black CPA, but I'm my chief financial officer. That's just when I pay my taxes. I review every invoice going in. I sign every check going out, which means I look at the invoice twice and decide when we're going to pay it. Because I do slow up sometimes. We do have a little bit, even with 25 McDonald's, you do have a little, not as bad with the Bill Clinton pilot strike, but I kind of decide, okay, when do we pay them? When do we pay them? How far does this mail go? Is it going to Chicago or is it going local? But I'm our chief financial officer. John H. Johnson, when he started, he first had Jet, and his bookkeeper, her office was next to his. When he became a mogul, because they used to have the Ebony Fashion Fair, Ebony Jet, they own some radio stations. She was not his vice president and treasurer. Her office was still next door to his. They had an office on Michigan Avenue. So keep the money close. Keep your eyes on the money and do what? Live beneath your means. Did I hit it? Okay, thank you. But no, it's really enjoyable having a family meeting now.
Any other questions?
We're done. It's lunchtime, right?
Okay, before we wrap, just a second. Mr. Parrish, you really trying to take my job now? I'm starting this. No, I'm just joking.
I'm sorry. I am sorry. Please, Lady Jade.
No, you're fine. I'm just joking with you. How many people in here know their why? Why you became an entrepreneur? Okay, how many people's why is not attached to finances? Okay. I wasn't going to, but how can I let you leave and not share your boot story?
My boot story.
I think that a why is so important because, as you all know, on this journey, sometimes I'm like, why do we choose this life? Like, this is so crazy, like this whole roller coaster ride, right? But it's so satisfying. There's so much peace involved in it. But on the days that you get discouraged, your why is going to play a huge role in you not quitting and not giving up. So, Mr. Parrish, if you don't mind, this literally, it's like your why is your why, but your why also affects me too. So if you don't mind sharing why you work so hard, because you have accomplished so much. Literally, if I had 25 McDonald's, y'all would not see me. I would be on somebody's beach somewhere. I'm just joking. Like, this is what we do it for, right? I'm striving for the soft life. No, I'm just joking. But please, please, please share your why.
Okay. This is my answer at JJT. And this may be emotional. I was actually looking to see if I had a Kleenex. So I grew up in a home, mother, father, my brother and I. So I'm skipping my dad to tell you a story about my grandfather. But I grew up in a home, my father, he was there. So I understand about 100 years ago, my grandfather moved, he was a sharecropper in Arkansas. And he moved to Memphis, Tennessee. And during the Depression, he would get up about 4 o'clock in the morning. My grandmother would cook him breakfast at 4:30. And then he had to walk probably 3 miles to this job site on the Wolf River. And they tell me that his boots didn't have shoelaces. He had to take pliers because he had wire to tie his shoes. They didn't have soles, so he had wire mesh that he put in his boots. And he got to the job site at 5 a.m. But the man, the NFL owner, the NBA owner, the big banker, would set out how many shovels he needed at 6. If he needed 1 employee, 1 shovel. If he needed 10 employees, 10 shovels. And I really should went in reverse, 10, 5, and 1. But my grandfather would get there at 6 a.m., at 5 a.m., and wait an hour to make sure he was first in line. So if the man only set out 1 shovel, he had to work that day. Now, eventually, the power of reading, he ordered books and taught himself how to be a carpenter. And eventually, he had a crew. And there's a subdivision in Memphis on the north side off of Chelsea called Hyde Park that he built a bunch of homes. And I eventually got a copy of a business card he actually made 90 years ago. And so I made a bunch of them to give to first cousins. But when I think about it, he left being a sharecropper. And if he could do that and didn't hardly have shoes, he had to use wire. It's like, hey, more power to you, Granddad. I owe it to you. I stand on your shoulders. So I got through it without crying, but that's the boot story. So I say learn some kind of family story that you could think about when the day gets long and hard, and you can say, hey, I'm doing this for my mother, my father, my grandfather, my auntie. In my case, hey, I think about my grandfather. It's like, hey, I think he would be so proud of me, so proud of me. So that may be the why. That may be the why. Thank you for listening to that story.
Y'all give it up for Mr. Roland G. Parrish, everybody. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lady J.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.